Okay, today is May 27th, 2022. I have with me John Iverson and Joni Bergman-Ayler. They're going to talk today about St. John's School and St. John's Church. So, first of all, John, tell me when you were in the school and the church and all that.
I attended kindergarten there all through 8th grade. Several years after my kindergarten, they dropped the kindergarten. It was 1st through 8th grade. And it was wartime, 1944, when I walked in the door. And Joni's sister, and Kathy Patak, and Dick Yonda, and several others that didn't go to Plattsmouth High. No, Marion Ryan came later. But in those days, there wasn't a big enrollment because of war, and I would think that probably, I'm guessing here, trying to remember, probably what we're talking about is less than 100 kids, K through 8.
K through 8. So how many were in your kindergarten class, do you think? Probably less than 20, certainly.
I would think we're talking about 8 or 10
Yeah, in kindergarten.
in kindergarten.
How about you, Joni?
I didn't go to kindergarten at St. John's because at that time there was none, as John mentioned.
Oh.
They had gotten rid of it.
So where did you go to kindergarten?
Central.
That's, okay, Central School.
Yeah, and so I started in the 1st grade. My brother had already gone through St. John's, and my sister was 2 years ahead of me. And it was a fun time. I was, little, a small child. The scariest thing about it was going to the restroom, which was on the lowest level of the school building where the boiler was. And it was very noisy. There was
Always
a
dark.
girl's side and a boy's side, with
Always dark.
a curtain in between. It was always very dark and dank and just scary, especially for a little tiny
In the
kid.
basement.
First
in the
couple,
basement,
first
yeah.
couple of years, there was a real fear of going down there, particularly during the noon hour, because we were bullied a little bit. After a few wet pants, that got cured.
Anyway, I loved school. I loved my teacher. I had Sister Annalita for the first 4 years. The 1st through 4th graders were all in one room, and the 5th through 8th were on the 2nd floor. We were on the 1st floor, and then eventually that was broken down a little bit because the 5th and 6th graders were moved out of that top floor room and moved into where the stage area was, just to kind of separate
I'm
the
going to hold up a
classes.
picture here. I hope I can get it within the camera's range so that
Oh, okay.
it looks decent. So, let me get the right picture here. Okay, this is the school we're talking about. And this was the entrance was on 6th Street.
Yes.
Okay, and to the left here, no, to the right is I'm seeing the back side of the priest quarters, right? That would be the one next to it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And the nuns had their quarters within this building, both upstairs and down.
Right.
And John, you have a little diagram. Can I see that? Maybe I'll hold that up.
Well.
So this is a diagram of how the building laid out, with a little chapel on the 1st floor and some classrooms. Was that all one big classroom downstairs?
Yes.
Okay.
With the chapel adjoining.
The doors could be opened. They were a series of doors.
Okay.
that could
They
be
were
opened
folding
between.
doors,
And that was also true upstairs. You could open the doors and get a bigger room out of it. We didn't have that second classroom upstairs until the baby boomers hit.
Oh, yeah. I see you had a stage,
That was upstairs.
but did you have an audience place within that?
We always
Very
had
small, very small area in front of the stage.
Which direction did the stage face?
It
It
faced,
faced Sixth
West.
Street,
Oh, it did, that would be the
Sixth
long,
Street.
narrow way.
yeah.
faced
Street.
Sixth Street.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so what kind of things did you do on the
well,
stage?
at the end of the year, we always had a program. And the program varied from year to year, depending on who the nuns were that directed it.
Yeah.
Sister Annalita, who Joni mentioned, was one of the two young nuns that really had a long history at St. John's, the other one being one that just retired when I got there. Sister Celestine was her name.
So you had two nuns that were,
At times, there were only two nuns there, plus a cook nun that wasn't able to
Housekeeper,
teach,
Yeah.
a cripple.
oh,
And later, they got to three, I believe, didn't they?
3 teachers, yeah.
When the baby boomers,
When the 5th and 6th grade was separated,
Yeah.
then we got Sister Marie Therese.
yes. They were all from the same mother house in Kentucky.
oh,
And almost all of them, I've got to say, were great. There were one or two that thought sending here was punishment.
yeah. And I see there was a chapel, did you have chapel every day?
And I will talk to you about that if you wish, because I
Yes.
was the one that
Start.
that was server acolyte at the liturgy in the morning.
Oh, okay.
And the
Yeah,
reason,
There was always a mass in the morning.
early in the morning, and most of that was Monsignor Aegis.
And you went, you had to go every day, or could you opt out of that and not
Well,
go?
we had turns. In the early years, they wanted me because they could depend on me, I guess.
You could be,
I
to
could
be
run
an
down the
acolyte.
hill and be there in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I can trace every step in my
Yes.
dreams.
You could go right by my house.
I can trace getting up the stairs. I can trace going to that big door with those weights to go inside and get ready to be the server at the liturgy and wait for Monsignor to come in the door holding those 2 cruets, wine and water, and they were colder than cold. They'd been in the icebox. Hi, Johnny. Early bird, huh? That's good for you. Now, don't tell me why Monsignor came from Malta, because I don't think anybody ever figured that out, did they?
Oh, yeah.
Did they?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Tell them.
Yeah. A childhood friend of his was Pope Pius XII.
Oh, my.
Eugenio Pacelli was his name, and they went to school together as young children. And eventually, he was named Pope Pius XII, and he was the Pope during World War II. And for several, I don't know exactly how many years, but the reason it made so much difference with our family, because my sister was born on the day that he took the job of Pope. And so it was always a special day, and especially with Father Aegis then at our parish, we would hear lots of things about
The Pope.
Eugenio Pacelli, the Pope, and it was always very interesting. And when Monsignor retired, this is a picture of him, he went back to Malta.
Now,
And
so he was he ordained as a Monsignor while you were there?
Oh,
Yes.
he was by far
I think
Monsignor.
he was a Monsignor when he
Long
came.
time before.
Oh, yeah, he was an author and everything. Really, he was a very learned
I
man.
have the book that he wrote, one of them.
Okay, so this is,
Monsignor
Father-
George Aegis.
Yeah, Father George.
and how long did he stay there? Because I
Over
think I
30
remember
years.
that.
27 to 56.
I was going to say, I remember that name.
He was the longest serving pastor we ever had.
Sure.
And he became friends with my parents, and he used to write to them after he moved back to Malta. Very often. He had a brother that was here as well. His name was Marcellus, I believe, and he was at our parish a little while before Monsignor George came. But anyway, they were amazing men. really were. Monsignor used to scare the bejesus out of me because he was always very
He could be gruff.
dramatic
He could be
in
gruff.
with his sermons and everything, and I can remember sitting there in front of church, just almost shivering because I was frightened of the man. But yet, outside of Mass, and when he's not giving a sermon, he was always so friendly and sweet,
Yeah.
and so that certainly
So you have
counteracted.
Mass with communion every morning,
Yes, twice.
with a sermon?
No, not
There
during
was
the
a time.
week. What, the reason they used the chapel rather than church in the wintertime was simply heat.
Oh, sure.
They didn't want to heat the
The whole
church
big
during the
building.
week.
Right.
And so anyway, to finish my story about the early morning, here I am, and we start the liturgy, and it was always in Latin, which was the church's biggest mistake over the years. And anyway, I would kind of drift off because it was early morning. And if the bell didn't ring on time, he said, "Wake up, ring the bell."
Yeah, oh, that was your job, to
Yeah,
ring the bell during communion?
Well, at different times during the
Communion.
liturgy, the bell was supposed to ring. And,
Yeah.
In the end, I'll tell you what I would do. I'd take off my cassock and surplice and run back in time for breakfast. And I didn't
At
have.
home?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I didn't have to go by to that second one where all the rest of you went because I had already been. And they started school then.
so there was 2 Masses every day in the chapel? You could
No,
go to
just
whichever.
one.
Oh,
Just one Mass.
Well, there was Monsignor's early Mass,
Oh,
and then
okay.
later there was
I don't like
the
that.
assistant. He had assistants after World War II.
Yeah,
And the
Not
assistant
before.
would say the second Mass for the school kids to start the school.
Oh.
that's true, yeah.
so this was open to the public when you went?
Always, all of them were. But the early Mass was Mr. Bergman, the nuns, and about 2 or 3 others.
That's just who came?
That's who came in that little chapel.
Okay.
And away he'd go.
And the chapel was downstairs on the
Yeah.
first floor?
Yeah, yeah.
So did you have to walk through classrooms to get to the
No,
chapel?
there was an
No, I-
outside opening
Oh,
door,
an
the one
outside
you
door.
referred to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, but anyway, the church itself was cold.
Okay, so,
It was hard to heat. And there
yes.
was to mention air conditioning was light years away from any of
different
these.
windows.
Yeah.
They had a lot of windows, and the windows were those big, tall windows that went practically from the bottom to the
I
top.
have a picture of the school. Oh, it's in this book, isn't it? Oh, of the church with the priest's home, yeah. And this was taken in 1959, so when was it torn down? What year?
No, Joni would
70?
know that, and I don't.
When was what torn down?
The church itself.
I don't know. That was long after the new church was built.
Okay,
Tore
so
down
this
the old
is,
church. Well, yeah.
yes,
was added.
this is St. John's Church and the priest's home. The priest's home on the left here is now somebody's home. They've remodeled it, and it was on the tour
It's
not too
still
long
up,
ago.
it's still up.
Oh, yeah. mhm.
Okay.
But the church itself is gone.
He's gone.
Yeah, so that's just kind of a driveway for that home
Right.
now.
Yeah.
My dad was a hunter, and he would always, every year, stop and give Monsignor some ducks to cook. And one time, Monsignor answered the door, and I got to actually walk into the rectory, and that's the only time I was ever in there.
I was in it several times, but I was with my mom, and she did a lot of things for the priests, and so
Yeah?
When
I
the
would
nuns-
tag along.
When the nuns would come in the August, the ladies of the church would help clean their quarters and get them prepared for the school year.
So the nuns went back to their home in Kentucky during
After
the
summer,
summertime?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Oh.
That was their tradition. This was the order of the Ursuline sisters. Before that, there were some Dominican nuns and I believe some Franciscans, but ultimately, the Ursulines asked to be in Plattsmouth to teach at the school and everything, and because they had others of their order that were stationed in Nebraska City for the same purpose.
Oh,
And it was, then that's the real reason we kept them, because it was kind of a community between the two. And we would have lost them, I think, if it hadn't been for that Nebraska City affair. Don't you think,
You
Joan?
mean of the nuns down there?
Yes.
They had more than we did
Yeah.
usually,
Yeah.
and a bigger school as
Yeah,
well.
well, they even had a little high school down there that they, at St. Bernard's, that they.
I have 2 grandchildren who graduated from that, Lourdes High School,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
yeah.
So, Monsignor's dream was to build a new school,
Yeah,
and he was able to see the new school at his last year there.
So he was still there when the
yes,
school was built?
yes, he was. And there's a funny story about that with my dad that actually my husband heard from more about from my brother.
Your
and-
brother, yeah.
And my dad. At the time, the parish raised the money for the new school. They had over almost $50,000 of money saved, and they were told they needed to get permission from the bishop in Lincoln before they could build a school. So my dad was head of the committee that went to Lincoln to meet with the bishop, and they said that they were there because they wanted to build a new school. And what did the bishop say?
Bishop said, "You people from Plattsmouth, that's all you ever want is something from me." To which John's dad spoke up, says, "Only thing we want from you, sir, is your permission to do it. We have the assets."
We have the money. Yeah.
And they were able
And
to
then he
say,
says, "Oh, that's different. Go ahead."
oh, you've
It's
got
a
the
little-
money.
It's a little deeper
If
than
you've
that.
got the money, fine, go ahead, build the school.
It's a little deeper than that, but I gotta be careful here.
Oh, well, don't be careful.
Well,
What's the
Monsignor
story?
Aegis rightly said that
May he
St.
rest in
John's,
peace.
St. John's was the parish in Plattsmouth.
Yeah,
And the other parish was a sidelight to that just because of the Czech ancestry
Yeah.
of the other people.
there was a little
And there was a
friction.
little friction there. And in fact, Monsignor lost the friendship of the bishop, I think, because of some mouthiness about it. Don't you think, Joni?
Could be, I wasn't there.
But anyway, of course, the new church took care of that. But my grandfather helped build the Bohemian Church.
Oh,
My mother was of Czech ancestry, and she was friends with all those people out there. And once in a while, we'd go to church out there, and
That's right.
it was a nice little parish.
Well, absolutely.
Unfortunately, there were some downtimes out there.
Well, it just was, people are not perfect, and, little squabbles arise at times. Sometimes the priest is involved.
Both churches went together to build the school.
Yeah, the 2 churches went together to
Okay.
build the school.
And the
we
new
went-
church too, didn't it?
We had students in all our classes that were from both parishes, because Holy Rosary didn't have their own school, so the kids would go to St. John's if their
yes. In
their
fact,
parents wanted
yeah,
them
I have
to.
a picture, Catherine
Yeah.
sent a picture of Dick Yonda
Oh, yeah.
on the
Joe
playground.
And Joe
And I knew
Linhart.
he
Joe
was the Holy
Linhart.
Rosary person.
Yeah.
Linhart?
Yeah,
I'm looking for a picture of the new school, so just
and then,
keep talking.
so we all were very well acquainted from the time we were children, and that
Sure.
was
I
wonderful.
think you have a picture of the new school in there.
Do you have a picture of the new school? That's
Is
what I'm
that
looking
still
for.
there?
Yes, it's now
It's-
it's a assisted living facility, I guess is what you call it. It's called Hope Center.
Yes. I
The
don't
new
know.
school-
It's not an assisted living for older people.
It's for younger people.
It's for young people who, I guess I don't
Are
know exactly
challenged.
what their function is.
Disabled.
Challenged individuals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's all I know. I don't really know what they actually do. But I know they revamped that building to accommodate,
the photo on the bottom is
No,
this.
this
That's
isn't
it,
one.
the second school
Oh,
there.
that's the second
Yeah.
school, yeah.
Yeah, I have a better picture than that.
And there, we may have a better picture too.
After the baby boomers, the enrollment leveled off to and remained somewhat constant.
Yeah.
And I'd say it's still under 100.
Here's a picture of the new school, which is located on Fifth Street, which would have been
The old-
north of the church.
The old playground that
It was
I've
on
got
our old
marked on that
playground,
map.
yeah.
The big old playground.
Okay, this
We
was
used to
the
play there.
playground.
where that-
And then just south of this building, I don't know if that building is still standing, was the caretaker's home.
Yes.
It's not there.
It's not there
gone.
anymore.
No.
There
And
was-
after the fire, the nuns lived in that
Yeah,
building.
they had a fire in the old school, and did you remember,
I
Sandy?
didn't know. But
Yeah.
I did know they moved into that building, but I guess I don't remember the
Well,
fire.
they had a fire.
That building was already under construction before the fire. I graduated from St. John's in 1958. The new school was under construction, scheduled to open in the fall of '56, and it did. And somewhere after that, the old school caught fire.
Do we know how?
I don't think they've ever figured it
The-
out, but
the-
it was the boiler, I think.
It was a steam boiler, and we had these radiators in the classrooms that would hiss and sparkle and crack.
Clunk and everything.
So
And
was the school ruined at that time then?
they thought it was, but it was on its way out anyway, because they
Yeah.
were building the new
So
school.
it was torn down shortly after?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. So,
Right.
so
Well-
then it was just the church and the priest's home, well, plus the caretaker's home in the new school then? Okay.
Right.
And all of this took up one square block, basically. Well, no, one half
Half a
block.
square block, yes.
Because the alley ran between Patux's and all
Right.
of this, yeah, okay.
but basically, Sandy, school there was fun, like Joni said.
Yeah, it was.
It was unique. The 6th to 8th grade, she would have to stop here and go there with this class for the 6th grade, and she'd then have to stop, and we'd have kind of a pause, and she would go with us for a while,
Kind of
and it was kind of unique.
A
that
study time.
way. It was unique that way.
And recess, we all played together, all grades, as I remember. I don't know whether that was constantly or just part of the time, but I can remember being swung on swings by some of the great big girls that used to live in my neighborhood up on Catholic Hill. And it was just a lot of fun because there were so many age differences and we got to know each other from little on up that these people were part of the parish as well.
Yeah. And as I said, most of the nuns were great. The one or two that thought they were punished for sort of a down year, but that didn't happen but once.
Basically, you had happy
And you know,
years.
it was a sort of a relaxed atmosphere, and of course I was playing it like a jerk if people would pay attention to me and ask for more, you know that, at that age. And so she got back at me.
Okay,
She had the last laugh on me because I was giving her heck all the year. Sister
Sister Marie-Therese?
Jeanette. Marie-Therese
Oh,
was the
Jeanette.
one that,
Oh.
Marie-Therese was the one that didn't want to be here.
Yeah,
And Jeanette,
and you could tell, yeah.
and Jeanette, I was
I never had a
poking
problem.
at her all year long whenever I could. So she got back at me at the end of the year with a play.
With a what?
A play.
Oh, yeah.
And during the play, unknown to me, one of the lines, Kathy Patak smacked me right in the cheek as a part of the play.
she had told her to, or what?
She told her
I'll
to.
ask Catherine about that.
And I almost fell over.
I don't remember that, John.
Oh, I do.
I'm sure you do.
Well, tell us a little bit about the church itself then. I remember very well when they sold everything out and had the big auction. That was heartbreaking.
It was so sad. And later on, we were searching for some of the statues that we all grew to love over the many, many years. And, I mean, they were just about totally, well, honey, you did some investigation, didn't you? Or knew of some of the investigations. And the one beautiful, beautiful stained glass window was...
That we never found.
Was, yeah, lost totally.
Hey, I can walk in now.
Some of it went to the
Well, some of
Trash
them were bought by a restaurateur in Omaha.
and some were bought by people, individuals.
Yes.
My
It
St.
was up
Joseph
for auction.
statue was bought by Barb Krejci, and she gave it to me later on.
Okay.
And, I mean, there's a lot of stories about
You
it.
walked in and you walked toward the front, you looked at the front altar, and it was an old-fashioned type of altar.
I have a picture of that. Do you have a
And,
picture?
There is one.
and
I
they
don't know
had
if
a
I do.
communion rail there.
Yep.
And I walked in on Sunday and I went to the side little room where it was never any heat to put on my garb to serve Mass. And I'd go to the other side and wait for the priest to come. If it was Monsignor, he'd hand me those cruets.
So you were an
again.
acolyte from when to when, what age?
The first time I did it was in second grade, and I fell out of the clothes they put me in, and I had to wait several months to get a little taller so they could find something for me.
This is a picture of the inside.